share is being exemplified with the help of Amorate, which Britomart is able to imbibe. Again, we can understand that here the symbol of the virtue of chastity is being explained, as in book 2 we already know. There are different kind of chastity roles, where Amorate on the other hand, she is weak, but Britomart, she is very much skilled. Still, the love for their husband or the love for their better half should be equally shared, and there should be no difference in that. No doubt, no, maybe the person is weak or the person is stronger. Ardgal, a knight who is the personification and champion of justice. Britomart found him in a magic mirror. She could understand that this is the person whom Britomart is about to marry. He meets Britomart after defeating her in a sword fight. She had been dressed as a knight, as been earlier discussed. And removing her helmet, revealing her beauty, Ardgal quickly falls in love with Britomart. Ardgal has a companion in Tolus, his companion, a metal man who wields a flail and never sleeps or grows tired, but will mercilessly pursue and kill any number of villains. Tolus obeys Ardgal's command and serves to represent justice without mercy. That is the reason why he was claimed as the champion of justice. Later, Tolus does not rescue Ardgal from enslavement by the wicked Radigard because Ardgal is bound by a legal contract to serve her. On her death at Britomart's heart liberates him. Only her death could liberate. This shows how the virtue of justice can triumph. No doubt there might be some kind of problems prevailing in between, but end of the day, everything happens for good is a kind of notion what Spencer tries to give, with symbolically giving the knight Ardgal. He is strong, he is powerful, and he is the champion of justice. But because of a legal contract which he owed to Randigard, he could not help himself being captivated or being imprisoned by the beast. And ultimately, it was only by the death of Randigard by Britomart that he was able enough to rescue, or he was able enough to save himself. Gyon, the Knight of Temperance, the hero of Book 2, he is the leader of the Knight of Maidenhead and carries the image of Gloriana on his shield. According to the Golden Legend, St. George's name shares etymology with Gyon, which specifically means the holy rustler. Calidor, the Knight of Courtesy, hero of Book 6, he is on a quest from the Fairy Queen to slay the Beltane beast. Everybody is no doubt in quest, but on the other hand, Gyon has been said that he is the etymological name means shares with St. George. There you can understand that whoever is mentally and physically strong would always have the virtue of temperance with them, or rather should have definitely the value of temperance. Only then they can give justice and they can be a virtuous true knight. Calidor is also another knight who is been shown in book 6 as a hero, and his quest as well was from the Fairy Queen was to slay the Beltane beast. Other characters are Akrasia, seductress of night. Gyon destroys her bower of bliss at the end of book 2. Similar characters in other epics also is been well seen, as in Cyrus, Homer's Odyssey, Alcina, Ariosto, Armida, Tasso. Also the fairy women from Keats' poem La Belle Dame Sam's Mercy, you can find such kind of seductress. Alma, her name means soul. She is the head of the house of temperance in book 2. That is the reason why I said physically and mentally the body, the person or knight should be very much strong enough and very much clean enough. Only then they can achieve or they can enter at the place or the palace of temperance, which is owned by Alma. That means soul. Clarity and crystality, clear soul is been very much necessary to achieve the virtue of temperance. Kirkapine, that is the church robber, represents monasticism. Abisa, from being without substance Corsia, blind-hearted. They are all the other characters which symbolically gives the political turmoil or the political allegory is being given by each of these characters. Like Church Roberts, the one who is having even Spencer to be noted. He used to oppose the life of priests and nuns to a greater extent. The reason why, because he used to feel like the person who used to own a simple life, how can they understand what kind of greed or what kind of impact the greed of love, the greed of wealth can be imposed on normal people. They were not able to understand, or they rather could not able to understand, because they used to live a simple life. That is the reason why they were given as the name without substance, or rather they were blind hearted. Abisha, name recalls abbess, the head of an abbey, the church. Monasticism is the feature of Catholic Church, and in Spencer's time, monasteries were often accused of taking donations to the poor for themselves. Abissa's deafness and dumbness and Corsia's blindness display Spencer's belief that monasteries are ignorant of the needs of the world as they live in seclusion, because in church they have all the kind of facilities which are needed to live a very simple, or whichever kind of facilities are needed to live a healthy life. So they can never understand what kind of sufferings or what kind of turmoil would be going in the life of a poor man. That was the kind of idea behind which Spencer worked, and that is the reason he gives abbess the name, which means abbey, that is the church. And again, he is trying to represent the Catholic Church, not the Protestant Church. Sans loi, that is without law, that is lawless. Law of God is being not implemented. And sans foi, without faith, faithlessness. And Archmago, as been earlier said, whose name is Archimage, the Protestant accused the Catholics of idolatry because of their extensive use of images. The sorcerer is able through deception and lust to separate Red Cross from Una, that is, to separate holiness from truth. Once separated, holiness is inclined to opposite of truth or falsehood. Once, it is just once, if you are able enough to taste the taste of lust or the taste of falsehood, one would always feel tempted to go for the wrong path. That is what has been said, like images may suffice to our temptations, and that may lead to a wrong path, which would enable or which would ultimately give a digress path from holiness to truth, and rather they would go instead falsehood to unknown places. They would be faithless and there would be lawless. Most of these villains are meant by Spencer to represent one thing in common, that is, the Roman Catholic Church. The poet felt that in the English Reformation, the people had defeated false religion, that is Catholicism, and embraced true religion, Protestantism. Thus, Red Cross must defeat villains who mimic the falsehood of the Roman Church. The Roman Church was true in the hands of Protestants and not the Catholics. That was the inclined meaning which Spencer tried to put forth, because of which all the villainous elements, if you try to read more, you could find there was some other kind of tinge if given about the Catholic Church or the Catholic people, but not about the Protestants. It was like the Protestants are the true followers or the true young Christian who search for the holy faith or the holy God, who is in search of the true Christian mission. Duisa, who represents the Roman Church both because she is false faith and because of her rich purple and gold clothing, which was for Spencer displays the greedy wealth and arrogant pomp of Rome. Much of the poet's imagery comes from a passage in the book of Revelation which describes the war of Babylon. Many Protestant readers took this biblical passage to indicate the Catholic Church. Even from the book of Revelation, the word the war of Babylon was used to indicate the Catholic Church, and that was even the appearance of Duessa was made in such a way that she could look like none other than a Catholic lady or none other than the Catholic one element of Catholic. Thus with this Duessa, Spencer was trying to give a kind of description of the bad feelings which he had for Catholics. Religious and political allegory are central to the long, complex plot structure and diverse characterization of the Fairy Queen. The Fairy Queen is understood to be a political allegory concerning the domestic and international status of Elizabethan England. Spencer explicitly stated that both the Fairy Queen and Britomart represents Queen Elizabeth I. Critics have concluded that several other female characters within the story, for example Una and Belphoebe, also stands for as allegorical figures for the Queen. Specific historical events and political circumstances during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I are thus addressed through Spencer's use of allegory. To speak a bit on Spencer's literary life, he was the English poet best known for The Fairy Queen, an epic poem and a fantastical allegory celebrating the Tudor dynasty and Elizabeth I. He is recognized as one of the premier craftsmen of modern English verse in its infancy and one of the greatest poets in the English language, although his fame is argued to rest in part due to his unabashed service towards his queen's high repute. Tudor family. The ruler Tudor family of England from 1485 to 1603, following the Plantagenets and preceding the Stuarts. The Tudor line included Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary I, and then the Elizabeth the Great, Elizabeth I. Edward VI was Elizabeth's younger half brother, and then after his death, Mary I, Mary Tudor, also as I told, was Bloody Mary, due to the persecution of non-Catholics, was Elizabeth's half older sister, and then when she died, Queen Elizabeth took the throne, and at the age of 25, Queen Elizabeth took the throne. Timeline, if you see, September 7, 1533 was the time when Elizabeth was born. Then Anne Boleyn beheaded in 1536. Mary I takes the throne in Jan 1547. Mary I dies and Elizabeth succeeds in 1558. Coronation ceremony is on 1559. There are different kind of overthrows, there are different kind of plots arranged for killing Elizabeth I. Elizabeth names William Shelley Lord Treasurer and gives him the new title Lord Burleigh. Then Leicester entertains Elizabeth, but then later marries her cousin. Elizabeth's marriage negotiations, but then that gets dissolved. That is the reason why Elizabeth is said to be the Virgin Queen. Then there were many kind of plots. These are the few plots which were tried to implement, but then it was all in vain. The preservation of the Queen's safety was done in 1585. Babington plot was overthrown. Drake's surprise attack on Spanish fleet in 1587. These are some of the kind of important dates which we need to remember in the 16th centuries. These are ready for plot, Queen of Scots, throne of England. Mary, Queen of Scots on the throne of England, tried to put forth Redolphi plot, but then again it was not successful. Babington plot has been narrated. Elizabeth's literature, if we say, yes, when we get to remember Elizabeth's literature means, but obviously we just remember one name, that is Shakespeare, but then apart from him also there were many writers like Christopher Marlowe, poets like Edmund Spenser, whom we are talking about, and there were men of science and letters, that is Francis Bacon as well. There was a small kind of episode which did took place, just let know. Spencer is as also known as the man who is believed to have crafted the phrase without reason or a rhyme. So the queen, when she got the kind of information or passed on the message that Spencer has wrote a poem, epic poem on her, she gave a pension of a sum of £100. But then the Lord Treasurer William Cecil was not convinced with this uh, information, or was not convinced with the kind of order what the queen had passed. So he wrote a letter to the queen in a quatrain. The line goes, I was promised on a time to have a reason for my rhyme. But from that time unto this season, I had neither rhyme nor reason. Reason is money, rhyme is his poem. When she saw this, she immediately ordered Cecil to spend Spencer the due sum, and then, because of this quatrain, he was able to get back the sum which he was being expected as pension. Edmund Spenser's poetry today seems a description of impossible fantasy scenes. However, a major inspiration for these fairy queen realms were the glittering splendor he saw in Elizabeth's court. We might also think that his emphasis on knights and jousting is another manifestation of fantasy, yet these two had their basis in Elizabeth's court. The Fairy Queen was recognized by both the Queen of England and prominent literary figures of the day as the greatest work of English verse to be written by a poet like Spencer's generation. Over the centuries since Spencer's death, critical response to the Fairy Queen has varied. Certainly, Spencer has exerted tremendous influence over a generation of poets and has rightly been called a poet's poet. Spencer was recognized as an important influence on major English poets of the 17th century, most notably John Milton. He was also been influenced by many other poets. Many of the writers, thinkers, and artists of the day enjoyed the patronage of the members of Elizabeth's court. The Elizabethan age, no doubt, was supposed to be the golden age in English literature, was thus appropriately named. Thank you.